It's recording.
Hi, this is Carrie Reed. You wanted to know something about the family.
Well, let's start out. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born at?
I was born in Springtown, just west of town, near the roadside park. That's where I was that's where I was born.
Out there close to Agnes Circle, I guess.
Yeah, somewhere close to there.
Yeah. Well, were you born in that little farmhouse there? You weren't born in that little farmhouse that they lived in.
I don't know what house it was because it was destroyed later.
Oh, okay.
The house is not there.
All right, so you're born just outside of town here in Agnes. When you were growing up, went to school, and you got on up in high school a little bit older, what is all that experience like?
Well, I went to high school, went to Springtown all my life, all the school years, and all my life. And when I was younger, we used to play softball in the lower grades, and then got up in the high school area and played volleyball and basketball and softball.
Well, would Granny and Papa would they think you as a good player if they asked them that today?
Well, probably would. Papa wouldn't. My Granny always watched me.
Well, so he was always busy working. Where did he work at? I know you're going to talk about some of this later, but where do you remember him working a lot?
Well, when I was little, he worked on the WPA project, which was Workman's Project Activity, and I think he worked toward Mineral Wells
working on the roads.
On the roads, yeah. They
laying
were
all those bricks,
laying highways, yeah.
Well, were they bricks then?
I guess they were, because I don't remember ever going over there.
Well, we'll talk some more about that a little bit later. What is your happiest memory ever that you cherished during the time you were growing up?
Oh,
something that made you really happy.
I don't remember anything that ever really made me happy as far as being happy about it.
So you had a sad childhood?
No, I didn't have a sad childhood. I always was happy. I never had anything that was bad.
Okay.
As a childhood. So
it's pretty good then. Well, you mentioned that in school you made good grades and you played basketball and all that. As most people, you probably have a person there related to the school business that was one of your biggest advocates that helped you to grow up some, to realize responsibility, carry out your part of the job, so to speak. Any of those that you can remember?
Well, I remember basketball was Drew Smith. Drew was our basketball coach, and he was always a good coach, and he loved all of us, and he never was mean to any of us.
That probably changed a little bit when he got on up in there and got a little bit older. He probably got a little bit ornerier. I remember one time all of us cousins went over and played his basketball team while he was there in Lake Worth, and that would include Bob, Don, and the whole group, William, Butch. That guy was probably a pretty good aspiration. Tell me a little bit about your adult career.
Well, in 1969-70, I worked at Montgomery Ward's in a field orders, and in that position you had to roller skate, and you roller skated all around to fill the orders. And I worked with Luann McDaniel, and at that time her husband Tommy McDaniel was elected county clerk, so she wanted to know if I would be interested in going to work, and I said, shoot, yeah. It was a lot easier than filling orders on roller skates.
Well, you went from the Montgomery Ward's department building, the store, I guess, the upstairs part.
Yeah.
And you went to the county courthouse. Did you miss the air conditioning at Montgomery Ward's warehouse?
Was none there.
Did you have air conditioning in the courthouse when you first went there?
Yeah, you had air conditioning.
So it's kind of like schools then. That's kind of the way my school was. I didn't have any air conditioning until we got on up in the years a little bit.
No, there wasn't any in school when I went. There wasn't any air conditioning in the schools when I went.
Well, how many years did you go to school? You didn't mention that.
Went to school 11 years because we skipped. There was one grade after me that got to skip, and we only went 11 years.
Do you know why y'all got to skip that grade?
No idea.
But everybody in class wasn't real smart like you.
Well, everybody got to skip. Didn't matter who you were.
Well, speaking of smarts, did you have any, you talked about your basketball and volleyball stuff. Did you have any academic concerns or worries?
No, because I always passed and always made good grades. And when I graduated as salutatorian.
Well, that's pretty good. So you had a couple of kids that were salutatorians, and obviously, since I went into coaching, I was not one of the smarter ones.
Yeah, Philip and Sherry got the. I forgot. I guess they were both salutatorians because
I think they were.
I know they were. Yeah.
And then Doc and I weren't salutatorians.
No, but Doc went 2 years in college. He never did get his degree, but he went 2 years.
Well, if you talking about your job and stuff, the way you progressed in your work days, you also used to work at a fireworks plant.
Yeah, years.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, it was hot and it was dangerous, and we made fireworks. And if you remember, I brought fireworks home during the 4th of July celebration.
And I think Aunt Maxine worked there too, didn't she?
Mac worked there too.
And we used to have one of the biggest fireworks displays in town.
Yeah, we did.
And we had sparklers one time, and one got in my hair.
Yep.
And I've still got that scar, so I don't part my hair in the normal spot. I cheat and get off that scar.
Yeah.
What's our time say on there? Does it say?
I can't see it.
Okay, we're on that 6 minutes. We're having a little trouble making our video, so we're doing this for the third time on this part 1 here. Yeah, if you had your life to do over and going through the fireworks building and the Montgomery wards and the county, that's probably the 3 main jobs that you had.
Yeah.
Would you choose a different career path, or are you happy with what you chose?
I don't guess I would. I didn't know any different.
Well, you were happy with what you chose. Why did you like working for the county?
Well, I just did. I liked the people. I like to be around people, and I did. My job there was record keeping, and that's what we did in the office. And Tootsie, little Jean, worked there too.
Jean Kaysen?
Jean Kaysen worked there with me. And
was she a hard worker?
She was a good worker.
Well, that's good, because I've heard otherwise. I heard she was a little lazy.
Well, she wasn't lazy, and she's never been lazy.
Okay.
Ever been lazy.
I'm just teasing, Tootsie, if you get to watch this.
Jean was a good girl.
Good girl then, huh?
Still is.
Well, that's good. She needs to be. Her husband's still putting up with her. So you wouldn't do anything different. What about your marriage? Tell me a little bit about your marriage to Dad.
Well, when we were to go get our license, it was like on a Saturday, and you had to have a permission signed by a parent to get married because we wasn't old enough.
How old was he?
He was 18, I was 16. So Mama went with us to sign for both of us. And so we got our license, and we went after that evening. We picked up Butch and Dennis Peters and went to Azle, and a preacher by the name of Reed married us at Ash Creek Baptist Church. We come back home, and it was a Saturday night, and on Saturday nights the old men, the family come, and if there were the kids, they went to the show because there was a movie theater there in Springtown at that time. And the old men sat on the benches and out in front of the stores, and the women all sat in the cars and talked and visited. That was their visiting time. So I come in and told Mama there that we'd got married and I wouldn't be home. And when they got home, Daddy cried because I'd got married.
And you got married, and he didn't even know it.
Yeah, but he knew we went to get licensed. He knew that.
Well, somebody who signs a marriage license? Your parents, and where do you get those?
Your parents always sign them.
Where do you got to go get the marriage license?
At the county clerk's office.
Got to get those from the county clerk. You know, you signed a lot of people's marriage licenses.
Sure did.
Some people you signed 2 of them for.
Yeah.
Like me, I have 2 marriage licenses signed by you that's on file.
Yep.
That probably looks kind of fishy in some places. But one last question on this segment. A little bit about your courtship with Dad. Anything exciting happened to y'all along the way?
Yeah, I remember it was way before we married. He went to Beard's down here at Beard's store here on the square, and he bought me 2 dresses. And one of them was a red crepe dress. And so he wanted me to wear that red dress, and we went to Fort Worth. He had made a loan from a loan shark downtown, and Aunt Grace had helped him get a loan for that car. And so when we got down there, it started raining, and that red dress shrunk because it was crepe, and you don't wash crepe because it shrinks, so it
shrinks up.
Shrunk up close to my body all the way over me.
So you look kind of slinky running around.
I look kind of slinky then. Yep.
Well, didn't y'all have before y'all got married, didn't y'all have one other significant event that we all still laugh a little bit about today?
Yeah, we was taking Dwayne Dobbs home back out there on Arp Road, and as we come back around the corner there on the swinging bridge, he missed the curve. There was a curve going across the bridge, and he missed the curve, and he went off on one side, and I guess I jumped out on the other side.
Dobbs wasn't with you, though. You'd already dropped him off, right?
Yeah, he already.
So just you two?
Yeah. And so I fell off on the bank, and he went down in the creek in the car, and they're hunting me and everything. So finally he got out of the car when he couldn't find me, and he hollered, and I told him I was on the bank.
Yep. Well, I heard that was a pretty good fishing trip from him several times.
Yeah, because there's a big old catfish in the car when they pulled it out.
Did that old car still run?
I guess it did. I don't remember.
We'll come back and talk a little bit more in a minute. We'll call this part one. Hope the heck this one works.
It's 11 minutes.
Okay, this will be part two. It's going to have just a few questions on it. Then we'll get to part three, which deals a whole lot more with the family. Just a couple of more things about her. One of the other questions I was going to ask you in that first video had to do with things that you've done, like vacations and trips and stuff. What is the greatest trip in your life as far as your memories, your vacation?
I guess with just me, it was when Sherry was in Hawaii. The first time I got to go to Hawaii was a good trip. But with Billy, we always had a good time when we'd go on our camping trips with the group of people that we went with, Bert and Billy Jack and Mo and Bill and all of them. There's about seven of us that went camping together. And those were always enjoyable too.
Where's some places you went?
We went usually to Navarro Mills. And then there's a couple of times we went to South Texas during the winter time. Stayed a couple of weeks.
What kind of interesting things happened on those trips?
Oh, we fished and ate and played games. And
anything funny come to mind that anybody did?
I can't think of anything.
Well, with Billy Jack, there was always something.
Always something going on with Billy Jack. Yeah, always something with him.
Well, speaking of Sherry in Hawaii, we talked about this a lot yesterday. What amazes you in today's society that's going on that you really are impressed with?
Well, years ago, I always heard that there would be a phone that you could see and talk to the person on the other end of it, and I never believed it. But it happened, because when she was in Hawaii, we'd take and use we'd Skype each other. At that time, we didn't have cell phones. I didn't even have a cell phone, but we'd Skype each other on the computer.
And that's a long ways to Hawaii, but you were getting to see her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in Hawaii for a long time.
Yeah, 19 years.
And you missed her a lot. She came home some, but it's still a big deal when your daughter's AWOL on you and missing far away.
That's right.
This is something else we meant to talk about earlier. What do you miss the most about the time from growing up to the time today that you don't have or don't do anymore?
I don't know.
Well, you talked about the Christmases, I think.
Oh, well, the Christmases we don't do anymore I always remembered George and Mary and Maxine Earl and Bugs and Juanita, Bugs and Pat coming for Christmas, and they'd come here and we'd have Christmas Eve together. And that always stopped. I don't remember when it stopped, but it stopped. And of course, Mama was still living then too. She was living in the nursing home, and we'd go get her.
I'm going to interrupt you a second. I have a question about Granny. What time did Granny always want to go home?
She always wanted to go home because it was going to get dark.
And it didn't matter what time, did it?
It didn't matter if it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon or what. She was ready to go home.
Well, do you remember how she fought about that nursing home? She wasn't going to go and she wasn't going to like it.
Yeah, she said she didn't like it, but then she did.
And then that's all she wanted to do was stay at home.
Stay at home. That was her home.
It didn't matter if it's 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. She was wanting to go home because she didn't want to go home after dark.
She was ready to go home.
Well, that's kind of fun. When you look back at your life, what are the things that you're most proud of?
my kids and my family, and everybody's grown up to be a good family and have good families.
Well, those are good things. I think we've tried. We haven't been successful in every endeavor, but we have tried. And in your family, you have what kids?
So 4 kids in my family.
And they are who?
You and Doc and Sherry and Philip.
Okay, now we're going to play a game. What are your grandkids' names?
Danetta, who's the oldest.
There you go.
Bryce and Chase,
Okay.
who are yours. And of course and then I have Michael and Rachel, who are both married. And Rachel's going to have another baby in December. Michael has 4 kids. Then we have Alyssa, who has 1 kid.
Do you have any other two? You just named 2 of your kids. Who are your other 2?
Oh, Sherry and Philip. I did name them.
I didn't know if you did or not. I missed them. So you got a lot of grandkids. Can you name them?
Name my grandkids?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just named them.
All of them?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Who did I miss?
Well, you named Danetta. What about your great-grandkids?
Well, great-grandkids, I can name them. Danetta has 3, which is Caden and Taylor and Liam.
Okay, that's good.
Alyssa has 1, who's Kai. Michael has 4, who is Jonathan, Caleb, Emily, and Lucas. Then Rachel has 1, who is Gabriel.
And then they got the girl on the way.
And the girl on the way.
Okay, well then you're not ready for the nursing home yet, are you?
No.
You're not senile.
Nope, not senile.
Okay, we're going to process this one, and then we'll come back with part 3, which will be the final part.
My bad.
Yeah. Okay, here we are again.
Here we are again.
We're going to have less than 15 minutes to do this, and a lot of things that people probably want to know that you might talk about later. Let's start this out by talking about Granny and Papa Bowen, maiden names, your brothers and sisters, and we've already talked a little bit about where you grew up, but I'm just going to let you start talking. I'll probably ask you a question or 2 along the way.
Okay, well, Papa and Granny, I've even forgotten when they married. I know they was married 50, 60 years when they passed away, but we always lived in Springtown after I was born. Now, we were talking earlier about the family. They had George, Bugs, and Maxine, and there was a girl born after Maxine, and her name was Fonsine, but she died, I think, at birth and was buried out in West Texas, close to Mundy or somewhere back out in there. They told me that they lived in a tent, and he worked on a project out there of building roads and whatever there was to do, but that was where he had his job. And Mom and Daddy, she told me at one time they lived in tents there. And then later on they come back to Springtown, and I guess that's when I was born then, I guess.
Well, it's probably in the water.
Yeah. And that's when I was born, I guess.
Now, when in Springtown, was he still working on the WPA stuff then?
No, well, yeah, back when I was little, he worked at Mineral Wells on the WPA project.
Well, there's a question that I was wondering about the Sinclair station.
We ran, well, at one time, that was back during when was that? That was back in the World War II. When World War II was on, we ran the Sinclair station. He did.
There where Kirk's Automotive is right now.
Yeah, right now is there. We lived in there. There was. That's the first time we ever had an electric refrigerator. Never will forget it. It made ice, and me and Mama was just tickled to death.
Yeah.
Of course, Maxine was married to Earl at that time, and they were in California, stationed in California.
And how long did he run that station?
I don't even remember, 3 or 4 years.
Too little to remember much?
Well, no, I wasn't, because I was in high school. What did
you think about all that traffic?
Well, to be thinking about the traffic was, I got a bicycle one year for Christmas. It was a big old bicycle, it carried 75 pounds of air in each tire. big one. And I'd get up and ride up and down the highway, 199.
All right.
I rode up and down the highway, and we used to, when Tootsie would come out and visit with us, we'd try to get Earlene to walk. We'd put her between us. Maxine could come home, and Earlene was just a little girl, and we'd put her between us and make her walk.
While y'all were on the bicycles?
No, while we were sitting.
Would you ride the bicycle or walk on that highway now?
Nope, wouldn't dare.
We're talking about Maxine and George and all. Who did they marry? How did that all work out? What do you remember about? Let's just start with George.
Start with George. George married to Mary Jones.
Mary Jones.
And they lived in Fort Worth on the north side. And I guess I can't remember how old I was. Probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 years old. I used to go and spend a week with them. I'd go and spend a whole week with them. They didn't have no kids. And Glenn Jones.
Now, did you go or did Granny go too?
No, I went by myself.
Well, George wouldn't let you go in other places with him.
Well, I know, but he let me come to spend a week with them. And Glenn and Bubby would come and play with me. Glenn played a whole lot with me when we were little.
Now, was that Mary's
brother? And Glenn, I think, is the only one living right now. All the rest of them are deceased. All the brothers and sisters of Mary are deceased now.
Well, what about Bugs?
Bugs and Juanita married, and he went off to service. I think he went off to service after they married, or before. I can't remember if it was before or not.
But both he and George were in the service.
No, George never went to service. George never went to service.
Okay.
But Bugs did.
Well, Bugs did a lot. He married Juanita.
Yeah. Her name was Juanita Thomas. And she was from Justin.
And he wound up in Justin eventually.
Eventually, he wound up in Justin and lived there and run a station there. And
he used to drive a truck.
Used to drive. He worked for he drove a truck and pulled mobile homes, because Billy went with him a time or two to Louisiana to pull.
He told me a story one time about being stopped at a roadside park and sleeping there, about some guy trying to get in his truck. He had his windows down, and he rolled his truck up and drove off and pulled that guy's hand off as an artificial hand. Now, I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
I'm sure
I don't
they all
either.
know, the older ones of us know the stories that Bugs could tell.
Maybe Juanita knows. Maybe she can tell us at this, because I think she'll be at the reunion.
And they had Kathy and Sharon.
Yeah, Juanita Bugs had Kathy and Sharon.
The others had Walter or Butch
and
Don and Bob. And then Maxine married Earl.
Yeah, and I guess Earl was the reason that I always loved to play softball and everything, because he taught me how to catch and how to throw it and how to pitch and everything.
See, a lot of people probably don't know that.
They may not. But Earl was always a good baseball player. He played on a baseball team here in Springtown, and they were a good team too.
Well, I know you and Maxine were closer probably than as a couple than you were to Bugs and George, and we lived close to them.
Yeah, always lived close to them. When we lived down here close to where we are now, we lived just maybe a half a block from them.
Can you tell me what happened to my chickens?
I don't remember. One time we had chickens and they drowned.
Well, I caught you and her out there catching them and wringing their necks.
Oh, they must have been big chickens.
They were big chickens.
I can remember Mama wringing the chickens' necks too.
And what did y'all do with those chickens?
I guess we cooked them. We plucked them and we put them in hot water and plucked the feathers off.
I know you and Maxine did something else with them too.
What did we do with them?
You made something with them.
Made dumplings?
Well, you made some soap. Some of them lye soap. Didn't have to do with the chickens?
No, I don't think so.
I remember y'all catching them chickens, though, and wringing their necks, and Maxine was real good at it.
Well, we probably ate them.
No, we did.
We probably ate them fried.
We did. Do you remember the washing machine that Maxine had on the back porch?
No.
Do you remember getting my arm inside that washing machine?
No, don't remember that.
I do.
You do.
In the ringer. Y'all come running out and saved me.
I remember when she kept Philip, when he was little, little bit. Well, he was trying to go outside, and Ray wouldn't let him, and he bit Ray.
Oh no. Well,
he bit Ray on the arm. I wonder if Ray remembers that.
He may. He might. So you had Maxine on one side there, and you had Earlene on the other side. So you were close to Maxine, but you were also close to Earlene.
To Earlene, yeah, because she was the first granddaughter born, and of course Maxine lived with us after she come in from California, while Earl was still in service before he come back to Texas. She lived with us, Mom and Daddy and me, and Earlene.
So you got any stories on Earlene?
Oh, I don't know. I can't think of any right now. She's pretty good at words. She does them pretty good.
Yeah. Any young stories when she was younger?
No.
What about Bob or Butch or Don? They get into anything that you remember?
No, I can't remember too much about any of them to know stories about them. No.
Sharon and Kathy?
Oh, I remember when Sharon used to come, and I remember one time when she went to the milk barn when we lived up there in the country. She got out there and she found Papa's whiskey bottle and she poured it out. I wonder if she remembers that.
I don't, but I remember the cows and the milk machines.
Yeah.
Cecil Holbrooks drove the dairy truck.
I don't remember that.
That's who drove it. I remember that.
I don't remember that.
What about William? Any stories on William today?
Oh, the only one I can really think and remember and think of right now was when William was a baby. Maxine and Earl went somewhere, and Mama kept him up there. We lived up there in the country, that little old house, and they lived down in the corner down there. And they went somewhere, and Mama kept William, and he bawled, and he squalled, and he bawled, and he squalled. She took him outside to go see if she could calm him down, and stood by the car and got bit by a copperhead snake on her
Maxine
foot.
did?
No, Mama.
Granny did. That's what I was thinking. I don't know why I asked that.
She got bit by a copperhead, and Daddy had to take her to the doctor that night. I don't know where he took her.
Yeah.
I don't know if he took her to the hospital or if there was a hospital. I don't know. William was just a baby, though. He was a little baby.
So who kept William after that?
I guess he stayed with, I don't know who kept him.
Maybe you and William just had to stay there by yourself?
I guess that man William, I guess he stayed there with me. I don't know if I was old enough to.
Well, maybe William will remember. I doubt it, but that's been a long time ago.
No, he was just a baby. He wouldn't remember it.
Yeah. It's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
So nothing on Kathy and Sharon that you share?
Nothing except, I'm going to have to tell this on Sharon. Sharon used to say when she'd be constipated, of course, at that time everybody lived in the country and you didn't have no bathrooms or anything. She'd go outside and she'd say, "Ooh, doo-doo balls."
Doo-doo balls.
Doo-doo balls. You had to squat. Oh, I know one on William, on Ray, I can tell. One time we went to pick up pecans back up around Boyd or somewhere back up in there, and so he had to poop. So she said, "Well, just get over there and squat down and do it." And he said, I can't. And she had to find a can for him to sit on so he could poop.
Well, we went and picked up pecans a lot with Maxine.
Yeah, we always picked up pecans during the fall.
And that was kind of interesting because we kind of went some of those things when we'd go pick up pecans.
Yeah. You and Doc would go.
Well, for the benefit of my siblings and for the benefit of my kids, I know we used to go fishing a lot when I was just a tiny baby.
Yes.
And
they didn't
I had a unique kind of playpen and a unique way of getting down to the creek.
Right. Louise and Jay, we always, and I can't think of their last name right now, but she was a Burkhalter, and she married Jay, and they didn't have no kids, so we'd take you down to the creek, back on Woody Creek up there, and put you in the wash tub, and two of us would carry you in the wash tub, and you was too little to get out. You just had to sit and play in that wash tub while we fished it.
I don't remember that, but I remember the story.
The story, you'd sit in the wash tub. We took you many times to the creek and fished in the creek.
Yeah. Can you see yourself?
I can see myself.
Okay, well, you're part of this movie. You're the biggest part. You're the star.
Oh, no, I can tell.
Well, I was going to ask you, too, about the housing. So we didn't really get into this, but you and Dad, where did y'all live at when you were first married?
When we first married, we lived with Mom and Daddy for a little while, and then we bought an old travel trailer, and it didn't have no toilet in it. Probably did, but we didn't use it. We had to go outside and use the toilet up there. But we lived in that old travel trailer. It was just a small one. He slept in there, and he worked at what is it? Consolidated at that time.
Lockheed?
Yeah, what's Lockheed now?
General Dynamics?
Yeah, he worked at Consolidated.
Well, you may remember, who was his riding buddy when he went to work? Because I know that he shared rides with somebody. Wendell somebody.
I guess Wendell Finley.
Yes.
Wendell Finley. And then he rode with Doris Dunlap, rode with them too.
Yeah.
She worked at there too, so yeah. She rode with them.
Well, I know Wendell talks a lot about the time that they had an accident out there on 199. I don't know if you knew about that or not.
I don't remember that.
He's telling about that story one day. Well, and your own kids?
My own kids? Do I have any stories on y'all?
Yeah.
Right offhand, I can't think of any.
Well, I know one when I got in trouble. I thought I was grown enough to go out and have a good time.
Yeah, I remember that. You went out to
the bachelor
party, and you got drunk and run off, and they caught you.
Tommy Williams, Darrell Walker.
No, Darrell
Walker and Darrell Williams and Tommy Walker.
Tommy Walker and Darrell Williams.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They said, come out from under those bushes, boys.
We've got you. We found you.
Yeah. Well, I remember coming home that next morning from my friend's house, and I wasn't so afraid of you, but I was kind of worried about talking to Dad about it. And I had asked you something about, would you tell him? And you told me no. That I had to tell him myself, and I remember I told him real slow, and I kind of flinched a little bit getting ready, and I was amazed when there was no reaction, but only some soft-spoken words. Well, I guess you will have to pay for that ticket yourself.
Yep.
And I remember that.
And I guess you did.
Well, I'm sure that you remember some stories on Doc, because he has a lot of stories. He's a lot like Bugs. He has a lot of stories.
No, I can't remember anything offhand I know he went into service.
Well, I'm talking about when he was little, though.
Oh, when he was little?
Why do they call him Doc? That would be a good story.
Well, he was always...
And where did he get that name?
He was always sickly-like, and Daddy gave him that name.
Pawpaw?
Pawpaw Bowen.
And
yeah.
Back to Pawpaw Bowen a little bit. I remember, we're going to go back there a little bit. He used to come to our house, and probably Maxine and Earl's every Sunday morning here in town. And he always had bubble gum.
Always had bubble gum.
And he always had bubble gum for everybody. He had a beat up old green truck.
Yeah.
And he always had some statements to make about Granny.
Oh, she always fussed about everything she did. Nothing she ever did was right.
Yeah. And you probably remember him bringing you some money there at the end, or giving you some money before he ever passed away or really got sick.
No, well,
a $2 bill.
The money you're talking about was when he was in the hospital. He was in the hospital, and he gave me his billfold to keep, and it had a $2 bill in it. And when he passed away, well, then Mama gave me that $2 bill. I think I may still have that $2 bill.
Well, I have his cane.
You got his cane?
Got it from Charlotte, Warlow, Jones, Young.
Yeah, I wonder how's come her with it.
Alvin.
Oh, over at Alvin's?
Mm-hmm. Alvin had it, and she got it and gave it to me. I was kind of curious. I've been meaning to ask you, we talked about questions to ask each other. Why did I get a spanking when my little brother, when we lived down there in the house on the corner by the creek, why did I get a spanking when he snuck off to the creek?
I don't know. All of you got a whooping.
But I didn't sneak off to the creek.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember you sneaking off, but I remember Sherry sneaking off, and I whipped her with a little peach switch, and she still remembers it.
She could probably tell you about going skinny dipping in that creek.
I don't know about that, but
Well, I could. William could.
Yeah.
Darlene probably could. Arlene probably could. She might not. Arlene might not own up to it. But
17 minutes.
Okay, well, we better tell them bye so that we can get this published. If we don't get it, this is all of it.
Well, this is all of it.
Tell them bye.
Goodbye. Maybe we'll have more questions Sunday. Hopefully make the reunion.